Okay, right now we're going to take you to City Hall. Mayor de Blasio giving us the latest with his daily briefing. Let's listen.
I give you these briefings, and just like my colleagues, we'll try and be as blunt and straightforward as we possibly can be. But some of the time, the answer will be we don't know because we still don't know. There are so many things we're trying to sort out in a brand new reality. What I can say is a lot of the pieces are coming together to make sure that we do everything humanly possible to slow the spread of this disease, to give us a chance to prepare for the weeks ahead when we're going to see a lot more cases, to make sure our health care system will be as strong as it possibly can be. And that's why the governor's decision was so important, to make sure that all non-essential workers go home, that only people who are working are people who are doing something absolutely necessary for our city and our state, to make sure that people had some clear rules about what you can and cannot do. And we want to be clear about how we're going to enforce those rules. And you're going to hear from our police commissioner in a moment, and clearly the NYPD is going to play a major role in enforcement, along with other agencies that we depend on, like the FDNY, the Sheriff's Office. Many other agencies will be involved. But really, we want to emphasize from the beginning, I want to be clear that we're in a brand new reality. We have not gone through something like this across our whole city in generations. And our goal will be every single day to try what we think makes sense, to see how it goes, to listen to New Yorkers, to best understand what's going to work and what doesn't. I constantly am listening for the feedback I'm getting. People are reaching me from all parts of the city, giving me updates. I know my colleagues are too, and we're getting a real sense of what people need and how best we can serve them. But we are all trying to catch up with a new reality. So we will be enforcing the governor's order. The governor's order is the right thing to do to protect us all, and particularly to protect those who are most vulnerable, the folks over 50 with those pre-existing health conditions, and particularly folks over 70, even if they're pretty healthy. Those are the people who are most vulnerable. Those are our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, the people we worship with, that we need to take care of. So acting on the state's order, we're going to do all we can to educate people, to help them understand how to live with this new reality, how to work together, how to support each other. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but we do know that we're going to be able to help people understand how to make it work, and that we all have to make it work. We all have to do this together. So you'll see folks from your city government, led by the NYPD, out there reminding people, educating people, warning people to make sure we get this right. So let me go over a few other matters, starting again with the state order. Again, starts to take full effect on Sunday night at 8. 100% of non-essential workers must stay home. But there are a number of industries and businesses that are essential. Those that provide food, groceries, obviously, food delivery, pharmacies, mass transit, healthcare. Those are the areas that, of course, will be protected. We'll keep going. But I think it's as simple as this. If you don't need to be out, you shouldn't be out. And if you can be home, you should be home. That's what it really comes down to, especially for those folks most vulnerable, as I mentioned. You know, folks who at this moment are vulnerable to this disease, let's just think about it. We don't want them to take any chances whatsoever. If anyone in those categories wants to go outside for a little bit, I get it, but please, absolutely distance from anyone around you and as briefly as possible. Really limit the people who come in contact with you. No one should come in contact with anyone over 50 with those pre-existing conditions, or over 70 in general, without checking first to see if you have a temperature. Use a thermometer. If you have a temperature over 100, you should not be in contact with anyone in those vulnerable categories. People have to be really smart about it, and always practice social distancing. That's 6 feet apart. Wherever you are, except when you're right among your own family members. You go out for a walk, stay 6 feet apart from people. You go to the grocery store, stay 6 feet apart from people. Anything you're doing, keep to that rule. Does anyone think it's going to be perfect? No. But if you keep thinking all the time and acting all the time, you'll be able to protect yourself. For folks who, were planning gatherings, obviously we're quite clear, and it's tough to say. There's so many gatherings we look forward to each year. Anything non-essential should not happen at this point. It just has to be postponed. The core of this crisis will certainly go on for weeks, most likely months. If you have to postpone, you'll be postponing for a while. But it is the right thing to do to keep people safe. And I remind people that's true outside as well as inside. That 6 foot apart matters in either situation. We want to make sure people remember, even when you're doing those basic things, going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, you still need to keep 6 feet apart. And again, we're going to ask the NYPD and other agencies to keep an eye on places where people are getting a little too crowded and to go in and remind people to separate and spread out. I don't think most New Yorkers need a lot of reminding of what this pandemic means and the dangers it brings. But we're all human beings. We're social. We're used to being close together, especially in this city. I know the NYPD and others will do a great job of making sure we're reminded to do the smart thing and the healthy thing and the safe thing. Okay, let me now talk to you about the overall situation. And this is the part of each briefing that I really hate to give because it's just astounding and it gets worse each time. But my job is to tell you the truth, and my job is to tell you the facts that you need to know. So here we go. As of 10 a.m. today, we can confirm in New York City 5,151 cases confirmed of coronavirus. And to give you perspective, that is now about 1/3 of all the coronavirus cases in the United States of America. It is about 2/3 of the cases in the state of New York. I hate to say this, but it's true. We are now the epicenter of this crisis right here in the nation's largest city. And we have so much we have to do. The city, we are doing everything that we possibly can. People are giving us ideas every day. We're running with those ideas. We're trying to create new things to help people. Our public servants are doing an amazing job. A lot of people are coming forward from the private sector offering help, from the philanthropic sector. There's so many people offering help, from individuals like those amazing medical professionals who've come forward, over 2,000. Those retirees who have volunteered to come back to help. Business people, big and small, offering to give anything they have to help this city. So many amazing, positive stories. And that reminds me just how good New Yorkers are and how much we're going to really find a way to get through this together. So the city government's doing everything it knows how. New Yorkers, businesses, nonprofit organizations, community groups, houses of worship, everyone's chipping in. State of New York doing the right thing, the right policy to protect us all, and taking a lot of the other right moves to be careful to make sure we all get through this. Everything makes sense until you get to the federal government. And I still can't understand it. Every day that I talk to you, I cannot understand what's going on here. There was another big press conference by the president and his key officials. They were talking about what is undoubtedly one of the biggest crises in this country in generations, one of the biggest threats to our national security in generations. And yet, essentially today, the president offered no new evidence of action. I don't understand why he won't do the single simplest thing that would help us and help this whole country: mobilize our armed forces. We need their ability, their logistical ability, their operational ability, their extraordinary personnel, including their extraordinary medical personnel. We need them here. We need them now. It's as simple as that. And the order still has not been given. The same with the Defense Production Act. We have been waiting and waiting. The president said today he would utilize it, but there's no specific evidence of that confirming to us any specific supplies or equipment being built, manufactured, distributed. We have nothing yet to tell us when we're going to get help, and we need it. I continue to appeal to our congressional delegation, which has been very supportive. I'm reaching out to cabinet secretaries. I'm reaching out to the vice president, anyone who will listen. But we need the president's full authority utilized under the Defense Production Act so that it will actually turn into thousands of ventilators, millions of surgical masks, all the things that New York needs. And by the way, I've warned people, in 2 or 3 weeks, at this rate, we're going to run out. But that's the beginning of the crisis. Later in April, into May, it gets worse. So we need the federal government to act. Senator Schumer, to his credit, is playing an extraordinary role. He has offered this Marshall Plan for hospitals. That's exactly what we need to give our healthcare community what they need, the supplies, the equipment, everything they need. But listen, it also, to his great credit, recognizes that states and localities are right now bearing massive new expenses and are stressed in huge ways, and we need the financial relief too so we can help our people. And our people need money back in their pockets, and the federal government can do that. So again, thank you to Senator Schumer for all you are doing. I want to give a number of updates about actions quickly that the city is taking, and then I'll turn to our police commissioner and then our schools chancellor. Let me just say, I mentioned earlier the sheer number of cases. Again, 5,151, an astounding number. 29 people in this city have passed away because of coronavirus. We've lost 29 New Yorkers, and that number is sure to keep growing very, very sadly. In terms of the boroughs, we have 1,406 cases. This again as of 10 a.m. this morning. 1,406 cases in Queens, 1,518 cases in Brooklyn, 1,314 cases in Manhattan, 667 cases in the Bronx, and 242 cases in Staten Island. Let me tell you about some of the things we're going to do, and the chancellor will go into more detail on the question of our enrichment centers. These are the new centers. We've never had them before. This is a brand new thing. And I want to thank everyone at Department of Education, everyone, our educators, our staff, our senior leadership, everyone. These folks have been working nonstop to get this ready. And these are the enrichment centers to provide education and to give a safe place to the kids of our absolutely essential workers, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our transit workers. We know we need all of those workers at the front where they're needed most, and they need to have their kids someplace safe. So they will open up on Monday morning. There'll be 93 to begin, but we could well be adding more. 76 of those will be K-12 education centers. 17 will be early childhood grades only. And these sites can handle well over 50,000 students. It's not going to be anywhere near that number to begin, but it could grow much more as we go along, and we want to be ready for anything. The first group, of course, again, is healthcare workers, first responders, transit workers. I've identified them before. All of them will be able to, once confirmed, of course, will be able to have their kids go to these schools and centers during the school day. For the Department of Education staff who will be working at the centers and the food distribution locations, I'll be talking about those in a moment. Of course, their children as well will have that opportunity. For the frontline investigators and child protective workers in the Administration for Children's Services who protect kids against child abuse, the same. For Department of Corrections essential staff, the same. For Department of Homeless Services and Human Resources Administration, shelter staff and key contracted staff, the same, and for sanitation essential staff. And that obviously means, in a case of corrections and sanitation, our frontline workers as well. So we will be getting all the details out on the different categories of city workers and other workers who qualify to have this opportunity for their kids. Those categories are not final, meaning we will reserve the right over the next few days into next week to add as we see what's going on, as we hear from additional folks what they need. I mentioned the feeding sites. We're going to be doing a lot of work in these next weeks and months on new ways of feeding New Yorkers. In terms of feeding, in this case, we mean grab-and-go meals. So this is not people sitting down. Of course, we're trying to enforce social distancing in every way we can. So the grab-and-go meals will be for any young person under 18, whether they go to a public school or any other kind of school. 435 sites will be opening on Monday. They will serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner A young person can come and get all 3 meals at once or any combination for limited hours in the day, on the early part of the day. Details will all be posted. We've got, this is based on sites that were either part of our summer food program from last summer. About 100 of those sites are being used here. A number of other sites where we see a very high level of kids who during the school year get school meals at a reduced rate or free because of their status economically. We're also going to have a special initiative to get food to the homes of medically fragile students. Those are students who really need particular help. Department of Education is going to have a special plan for them, and we're working with DoorDash, and we want to help them, we want to thank them for their help in making this possible. Everyone who stepped up to make these feeding sites possible, I want to thank all of you. There's a lot of public servants, everyone out there, I just want to say a lot of public servants who know it's a tough situation, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, but they're stepping forward anyway to help their fellow New Yorkers, and I want to commend all of them. Some other quick updates. There have been real questions about the small business grants and loans that we announced over a week ago. Want to make sure we're clear about how that works, and I want us to do a better job of keeping this information straightforward and clear for small business folks who need them going forward. The grants for businesses with 5 or fewer employees who have lost 25% or more of revenue. That application has been online and live since last Tuesday. And we have now 466 applications. They will all be processed by Monday, and money will go into people's bank accounts on Monday. For the businesses with fewer than 100 employees, and those that also lost 25% or more of their revenue, there's a huge demand for those loans. We are not going to be able to meet the full demand immediately. We'll do our best to reach as many as we can. Initially, that's about 400 businesses as well. Those businesses will be able to process their applications tomorrow, beginning tomorrow, and the loan money will be in their bank accounts by the end of this coming week. So that one we're still playing some catch up on, but we should have money in people's hands by the end of this coming week. On our city parks, this is another one that pains me. Again, I'm a parent. I love our parks for my own experiences with them, but also all the time I spent with my kids in our parks. It pains me to tell you we have to cancel all field permits. We cannot allow any events. We cannot allow any team sports. And I'm someone who loves team sports in every form, and I'm very sorry to have to tell you that, but it's just, unfortunately, pretty much all team sports come with people getting in close proximity, and that's how this disease spreads. So we're not going to be able to allow any permits for that. We're going to urge everyone to exercise on their own and socially distance to the best of their abilities. And parents are going to have a tough time with this, and kids are going to have a tough time with this, and it's not going to be perfect. But do the best you can to live in this new reality. Again, is it going to go on forever? No. It will be a certain number of weeks, a certain number of months. We don't know exactly what it will be, but it will not be forever. We know it will be finite. We know this crisis will end. So it's going to be a tough, tough adjustment, but we have to be clear about keeping people safe. There's been real good questions about bike lanes and bike usage. There seems to be a real surge in bike usage. That's fantastic. We want to support that. We're going to begin by installing temporary bike lanes, hopefully by the end of next week. First of all, an area very, very important, 2nd Avenue, Manhattan, between 34th and 42nd Street, a temporary bike lane there. Also on Smith Street in Brooklyn, part of Smith Street that does not have a bike lane. We'll put in a temporary one there. We'll be looking for other areas all over the city that need them. We certainly want to encourage people to use bikes as much as they can at this moment. And we'll have constant updates on that. Now, when it comes to another way that people get around our ferries, we do have, unfortunately, we do have to reduce some of our ferry service because there simply isn't a ridership to, justify the kind of frequency we have now, and we have to be smart about that. Every resource right now has to be used best to fight coronavirus. Every part of the city government has to support every other part. So we will have to reduce frequency because we just see many fewer people. Staten Island Ferry ridership is down 70% compared to the same point last year. We will still have ferry service, but we need people to, of course, be smart about social distancing, and they will have fewer trips, and so we have to be really smart about keeping an eye on that, keeping that balance. It will not be a huge change. We'll be reducing weekday schedules from 4 to 3 boats during rush hours. So you'll still have regular service. It'll just be somewhat less, and that will go into effect this Sunday at midnight. The same for New York City Ferry. NYC ferry reductions will begin next week. We'll get the exact details. Obviously, we will be careful to protect the times that people need the ferry the most during morning and evening rush hour, but there will be reductions in that service, details to be announced. So, concluding, and then a few words in Spanish. Look, just to say anyone out there is confused, you're not alone. If you feel afraid, you are not alone. If you're anxious, you're not alone. Everyone is. All of us are. All of us are trying to make sense of this. But I'll tell you something, and I really, really believe it. New Yorkers are so strong. There are other places in this country, and I love this whole country, but there are other places in this country this may be a particular shock to the system. But here, New Yorkers have dealt with every single thing ever thrown at them. And we've had a lot thrown at us. We are a tough people by nature, and that's something to be proud of. So everyone, you know, let's depend on that. Let's believe in that. Passionate New Yorkers, that ability to help each other out no matter what. We've seen that time and time again. Let's depend on that again. Let's be there for each other. A few words in Spanish. Comenzando este domingo a las 8 de la noche. Solo los negocios esenciales estarán abiertos en la ciudad de Nueva York. Les insistimos a todos, quédense en casa, a menos que tenga que salir por razón esencial, y protejan a los más vulnerables. Los meses que vienen van a ser difíciles, pero vamos a superar esta crisis, como siempre lo hacen los neoyorquinos. With that, I'm going to turn to our police commissioner. I'll just say this. Commissioner Shea and I have been talking over these last days. This is going to be a new reality for the NYPD. There's no force on earth more effective and more capable than the NYPD. There's no group of professionals more agile, more sophisticated than the men and women of the NYPD. But there's an added positive reality here, and Dermot Shea is one of the people who created neighborhood policing from scratch over these last 6 years to really connect our officers more deeply to their neighborhoods, to build personal relationships, to really understand what was going on block by block, to get to know the people who run those grocery stores and those pharmacies that are so crucial right now. So our officers kind of, in a way, had a head start on this crisis. And with a neighborhood policing strategy, we'll have a real understanding of where they need to be to help educate people, help people remember to keep moving on and dealing with these new rules.